All right. Hey, everyone. Taylor here. I'm the counselor at Sequoia and RVCS Sequoia.
Hi, I'm Krista, otherwise known as Miss Krista. I'm the counselor at Spring Creek in Matanzas.
And I am Leith Ulrich, otherwise known as Miss Leith, and I am the counselor at RVCS Matanzas and also in the SELF classroom on the Matanzas campus. So we wanted to get together today and just have a little chat about, well, the start of the school year, how things are going, maybe to help you parents out. This is really for you parents, okay? Because we know that you guys are also kind of trying to figure out the beginning of the school year, how this is going to look. You might have some questions and things. So hopefully this will be a good starting point in addressing some of those concerns. So we all know that the world looks a little different right now. Beginning of the school year looks different right now. And we're trying to get our heads around it. Things are happening in our community, you know, with the fires and everything. Things are happening out in the bigger world. And these might be bringing up some bigger feelings for everybody. I mean, that as, you know, normal day-to-day life, we just don't really experience these. And so I know some people might be having a hard time right now and how to manage it. And also how to help your kids manage this, because it's big for them too, right? So we were just talking the other day and just chatting about it. And Krista, you came up with some things around this.
Yeah, there's an expression that I use, and many of you might have already heard me use this expression. These are really, really kind of normal feelings, way of feeling and behaving for really abnormal, unusual times. Some of those feelings that you might be experiencing could include frustration and anger and sadness. I mean, we have happy moments too, and we can't overlook or, not acknowledge those too. But there's a lot of really big feelings that come up that make you feel like, oh my gosh, it's really hard to manage them.
Yeah, I was talking to a buddy the other day, and I told him, I think it'd be weird if someone didn't have some level of anxiety, some level of depression and grief. I mean, I think that the sense of grief is something that, doesn't always have to just apply to like someone passing away. I mean, there's a grieving of things that didn't happen at the end of the school year last year, things that didn't get to happen over summer, not being able to see friends, those kind of things. There's an underlying level of grief that happens too. And that's a big feeling. And I think sometimes that's not acknowledged.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things is to remember for kids and adults is just to really identify what those feelings are. And sometimes, like when you were talking about grief, Taylor, it made me think that is a really big word. And not everyone, especially children, don't understand how to name that feeling. Mm-hmm. So I know that for myself, sometimes really trying to process what that is, what it looks like, what it feels like, where is it in our body. Kids really are pretty good at expressing it in their feeling face, or they could draw a picture to maybe help them kind of name what that feeling actually is.
Mm-hmm. And it may be that what we know of as grief, I mean, in kids, right, it always comes out in a different way. Mm-hmm. It could be, I'm really mad about something, or you never listened to me, or just kind of a change in things, or they may be more withdrawn than usual. Mm-hmm. And you might not notice it in yourself either as a parent, right? That could be a concern, that you're running, trying to get all the kids on Zoom and taking care of the chores and trying to keep up with work at home and everything else. And you may not realize, why am I yelling at the dog, right? And it's coming out in that way from yourself as well. So maybe being able to take that minute and just say, wait, what's happening here? And finding a way to think about what you're actually feeling. You're right, it can be really hard to identify. I know it is for me.
It just brought up something for me, Leith. I appreciate you saying it that way, because it's something else that I've thought about, is that sometimes there's a mask, but sometimes people show anger, but underneath they're feeling that sadness, that grief that Taylor was talking about. But the flip side is that they might show their sadness and they're really mad about something underneath. So it kind of goes hand in hand.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I wrote on my little notes, the iceberg. It's something that I've talked to parents about, is talking to their kids about, like, just saying, where's your iceberg? What's going on underneath and what's going on up top? And for parents, it could be up top, you are not doing your chores and you're not doing Zoom meetings. Underneath, talking to them about, like, oh, you are really anxious or frustrated or, grieving something. Right. As adults, it's like, if we're driving to work and getting angry at every single person that's pulling out in front of us, maybe we need to figure out what's going on underneath or what's behind that mask.
So kind of like validate how they're feeling in that moment.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Validate for your kids and validate for yourself as well. I think that's just as important right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, Krista, I've heard you talk about modeling too, for parents to be able to like model. And it kind of makes me think about how parents, it's important for them to kind of take that first step as far as like being vulnerable and saying, I'm feeling, maybe it's a dad saying, yeah, I'm feeling scared about something. I'm feeling sad about something, and talking to their kids about that. And kids can see that and then follow along.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think modeling for them is really, really an important thing. Once they name the feeling and then you can validate it to really acknowledge what they're feeling in that moment. I think that offering reassurance can be really, really helpful and help them come up with some positive things. I know that it can feel really overwhelming. When Leith was talking at the beginning of our meeting today, there's a lot of different things going on, from raining ashes to the smell of fire to, COVID-19, and distance learning in itself is so overwhelming. But it's really important for us to remember that all the positive things that are happening with us too. And sometimes we might have to search a little bit harder for what those things are. Mm-hmm. And that kind of goes hand in hand with modeling for them to remember those things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's the first step towards what we want for all our kiddos, right? We want them to be able to develop that I think a lot of it comes from not feeling in control, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. We're not in control of the pandemic. We're not in control of the fires. We're not in control of how school looks this year. So I think just being able to maybe focus in on those things that we can control sometimes can be a big help. Mm-hmm. Just saying, I can get myself up in the morning and get to class. Mm-hmm. I can do that today. If nothing else, I've done that. Yeah. And concentrating on that and being able to say, I accomplished something today, right? Or getting up and having a good meal, or getting 2 chores done during the day that you have been putting off forever. Just accomplishing something and be able to cross something off your list sometimes can help bring back that sense of, okay, in my day-to-day life, in my little house, with my little family, I can be in control of something. And I think sometimes that helps as well. And I think for our students, especially, sometimes all those feelings, they're so overwhelming, they don't feel like they can control them. And it's okay to help them express them and then say, okay, how can I make it a little bit smaller for you? What can we do to help put this more in perspective? Because it is big, it is overwhelming.
Yeah, something that you would talk about just reminded me, like I had this sense of like all these flooding feelings coming in that can feel super overwhelming. I know that, Taylor, you talked about, being a role model, and one area that parents can help their kids is to feel some normalcy, like you were talking about, but is having some consistency and some healthy boundaries around that consistency and having that routine. And self-care, it's got to start from the top. If you don't care for yourself, it's really hard to care for others. So I wonder what we could talk about some of the things that we do to embrace self-care.
Oh, I'm gonna let you guys go first on that. I want ideas. Go Taylor.
Yeah, for sure. I have one thing that I think could help parents with the control thing was something I did with the kiddo earlier in the week. Was we just made a list. What's in our control, what's not in our control. Mm-hmm. And I encouraged him to do that with his parents. And, I think as adults, to start that with your kids and just say, hey, this is a list. This is in our control. This is out of our control. And once you're done, picking 1 or 2 things to focus on that are in your control. It, like, just for me personally, that's huge. And I think that does kind of tie in with like the self-care piece, because, like for me, taking care of myself is riding, running, being outdoors, doing stuff like that, hanging out with the dogs. And so for the last week or so, that's been super out of my control, totally out of my control. But the example I gave a student was, the smoke is totally out of my control, but what I do with my time indoors is in my control. And so if I do some yoga and do some breathing and some, at-home workouts, I can do that, and I feel better doing that.
Yeah, I really love that. I have to say I agree. I actually have paper or my whiteboard in my office, and I do the same columns of like what's in your control, what's out of your control. Sometimes I even break it down a little bit smaller to like have them help me to measure the size of the problem. So tiny, medium, and huge. And we have some huge things going on right now, but there's a lot that might be in a different category if they start to talk about it. Self-care. Okay, it can look like a lot of different things. Like Taylor, I really love being outdoors. I love swimming. I love going on long bike rides. I actually have a heavyweight bag in my garage, and I like to work out on that. Going on walks, talking. I'm a big talker. I like to talk with my family. And having to stay inside can kind of make me feel a little bit more uptight. So believe it or not, I'm the person who's going to be doing jumping jacks in my house or doing squats or pacing back and forth in the room. Sometimes self-care can look more and feel more quiet though. I can take a good book or having a cup of tea, or, just finding something to binge watch on Netflix can actually be like a real escape for me. How about you, Leith? I'm curious about that.
You guys have some great ideas. I do a lot of that too. Like I've taken up the running. I do a lot of hikes, which I haven't been able to do for a couple weeks now, and I really need to get out and do it again. Mm-hmm. Take the dogs for a long walk. The dogs love it too, so it's a twofer on that one. I love, in my family, food is love. So I love cooking a good meal. We share a lot of our food with like my son and his girlfriend and things, and we share back and forth as we cook things. Also having something to look forward to. That, I think for me, that's been one of the hardest parts of this entire experience these last 6 months, is not having the big experiences, like going to a concert or to a ball game or the theater or something like that. I love doing those kinds of things, and not being able to do it has been hard. So even like little things like this weekend, we set it up so my whole family, all the kids and their people, we're going to do a game night in, and we're all going to be in our computers, and we're going to have a game night with everybody. So, and have dinner together and just be with each other that way. So I'm just looking forward to that, because I haven't seen some of them in person in 6 months. So just having things to look forward to, having little markers, finding different ways to just be able to enjoy being in the moment, like you said, maybe with a good cup of tea or a good TV show that you can just kind of lose yourself in, or a good book, or even having something a little bit in the future to say, hey, this is coming up, this is really cool, I'm looking forward to it, and get that excitement going again. I think that's important. And just maybe finding something every single day at the end of the day, you can just look back and say, oh, I'm really happy about this happened today. And it could be just the smallest thing. Like I said, it could be I made it to class on time. Or it could be I finished that book. Or it could be that was the best meal I've ever had. It could be something along those lines. So just finding something at the end of every day to kind of focus on as you go to bed and say, okay, this was a good day because.
When you said that, Leith, I have to tell you, I forgot when I was speaking, but you reminded me that I have a jar on my kitchen counter, and I have like little Post-it notes, and I literally at the end of every day, not just myself, but everyone that's in my family, we write down like something positive that happened at the day. And when we have days that are a little more difficult, we pull out one of the sticky notes, and then we remind ourselves something that might have gone really well.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that. That's really cool.
I too.
I was talking to a buddy of mine, and I think along the lines with self-care, we were talking about how I would say for most people, having a balance of a physical outlet and a creative outlet is really important, and so making sure that like, if you are the kind of person that leads more towards physical outlets, trying to incorporate some type of creative outlet. And if you're the kind of person that tends to do more creative things, do something physical. As humans, I think we've got to like balance ourselves, and we all have a desire and a need to like get out and move. We all have a need to like be creative and like, kind of stretch our brain.
Yeah.
But one of the other things real quick that Krista, you reminded me of, is I had a friend of mine a long time ago tell me he goes by the 80-20 rule. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said every day he gets up, and he says that if I do 80% of my day well, I'm good. He's like, I'm a human. I'm not going to do 100%. So I'm going to give myself 20%. And he's like, and if I do 90%, then that's awesome. But I'm not going to beat myself up over 20%. And he's like, in general, 80% is about there. And I like that rule. I like starting your day with like knowing that it's okay to kind of make a little bit of a mistake. It's okay to like get upset with something and then, you know, realize, oh, okay, I shouldn't have done that. But then being able to look at it like, okay, I'm going to focus on doing 80% well.
It's kind of
that's really important for our children too,
Mm-hmm.
right? And to teach them it's okay to not have to do everything perfectly, and we have to give them the room to do that 20% not so well, right? I was just real quick going back to the control thing, giving our children the chance to be in control of things. So even the youngest ones, we can say, no, you can do that, instead of doing it for them. And I think something we're going to see coming out of this, and it was noted actually in the meeting we had today, Taylor, was if we give the students more autonomy and more accountability for their education, they're going to take it on. Mm-hmm. As opposed to the parents having to sit down and get them on Zoom or having to track their agendas or whatever. If we hand that to the students, they're going to take it on and be able to do it for themselves. So I think coming out of this, we're actually going to see growth in our students in those areas because they're going to learn that they need to do this. And we have to give them that chance to do that.
Yeah.
We always tell kids school is their job. And, you know, sorry, I cut you off.
Okay. This is good role model practice, right?
I know, I'm sorry.
Patience.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we tell the little ones especially that school is their job. And I think it's important right now as people, we all need to feel a sense of purpose. And when we give kids that kind of flexibility and like, hey man, this is your job, you do it. It gives them a purpose, you know, kindergarten all the way up to, you know, high school or adults. So anything that can instill a little bit more of a purpose in kids' lives and in our lives, I think is really important.
Especially right now.
What I was going to say, I mean, we also have to be mindful of the little ones have a harder time, might need that direction from the adult in their home. But, you know, when you were talking about the 80-20 or the 90-10, weirdly enough, my adult daughter came in the room and I was on mute, so you couldn't hear it, thank goodness. But I came home and I had a complete meltdown the other night. And I'm talking meltdown, like, it would have been a little embarrassing for people to see, but really being forgiving of yourself that you're going to have those moments and it's okay because we all have them. Adults do, parents do, counselors do. And, you know, learning how to forgive yourself when you have those moments and then finding the tools to maybe not repeat that or repeat it in a different, hopefully less like fit-like way. You're going to have those big feelings and sometimes they're hard to manage, but being okay with yourself that to acknowledge that you had it and where it came from and that it's okay, you know?
Yeah, forgive yourself and be kind to yourself.
Yeah, it's really important.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, should we wrap up? I know we're coming towards the end.
Yeah, well, I learned a lot from you guys and I hope that families can really, you know, learn some things about themselves from, you know, this meeting and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And any moving forward.
Yeah,
yes.
Thank you guys. I got a lot of notes, so thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks. Have a great day, guys.
Bye.
Bye.